Hi, everybody. It's Scott. I'm back again with our Ascent TV interviews. And this week, we're talking to Dr. Rob Orff, and he is a doctor of clinical psychology. He's in our counseling center, and he sees clients. But one of the things, what we're going to talk about today is instead a thing that's open to all of our PSU students. And if there's ever been a semester for it, this is probably it, right? So, Dr. Orff, do you want to tell us about this session that you're doing on Wednesdays and sort of what it's geared towards?
Yes, thank you very much, Scott. So at the Counseling Center, we'll be providing a new psychoeducational group called the Finding Motivation and Getting Work Done group. We recognize that for many students, it might be especially challenging during this time to work on your goals and get your work accomplished. That motivation can be a challenge just generally, but especially during this time. So we're providing this open psychoeducational group online via Zoom webinar link to help students learn how to work on their motivation and accomplish their goals. You don't need to be a client of the Counseling Center to attend. It's not a therapy group. It's open to any students who might be interested.
And so if I want to attend this group, even though I don't have to be a client, do I need to sign up for it, or can I just follow the link and pop in?
Great question. So you don't have to pre-register. You can just go to the link, pop right in. The link is located on the Counseling Center website in a couple of spots. Basically, the easiest way to get the Counseling Center website is just go to Google or Yahoo, whatever your search preference might be, and just type in Plymouth State Counseling Center. The link is on our homepage when we describe the group. It's also in the news and events section of our website, and it's also located in the groups section.
Okay, great. And we'll link to it in this story as well.
Excellent.
So I wanted to maybe just touch on some of the specifics that the group is going to talk about, and maybe you could talk to us or help us to sort of illustrate what students are going through right now. So I know that a lot of Ascent students, you're just coming out of high school, you're coming from this very structured setting to college, which can be a lot less structured. And can you talk to us a little bit about time management and how students might, struggle with that, and what some of the sort of tips and tricks are that the students should try to pick up here?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I often talk to my friends who are psychologists about this transition going from high school to college and how much is really involved with that transition. And one of the big things about that, one of the challenges of that transition is that in high school, as you said, there's a lot of structure, and there are a lot of people who might be checking in with you to do your work. And with college, you have more free time and a lot less structure. So one of the big challenges and opportunities for learning and growth in college is to learn how you can do that on yourself, organize your time, and learn to check things off your to-do list. So this is what the group is specifically going to be teaching. Topics that we'll discuss include knowing your why and purpose for accomplishing your work, like what makes this assignment or this class or this college experience important to you. Then we'll also talk about tricks regarding getting yourself and your environment ready to do your work. And then we'll focus a lot on time management techniques, ways to make to-do lists and schedule things, having a system of rewards. So a lot of great time management techniques. And then we'll move into some other behavioral strategies or different tricks that are helpful getting work done. And then we'll also, of course, move into considerations regarding COVID-19 and how, due to the pandemic, some of the things we used to be able to do and strategies we used to be able to do might not be available to us, but ways we can begin to try to approximate what used to be helpful before, maybe for us in high school. And then we'll end with talking about the great academic support resources at PSU. And making sure students know how to access those. And we'll also talk about the services at the Counseling Center and the other things we provide related to individual counseling and group counseling.
My name is John, and I have just gotten here to PSU, and I have to say that I am really, really good at Call of Duty. And, I know I have this paper that's due in a couple of days, but I'm also really, really trying to level up in Call of Duty. how, how would you suggest that I sort of, find a better way to balance, this video game where I'm so close to getting to that next level, and I know it's really important to get this project done. Like, what would you say to me in that situation?
That's such a great question. And funny that you mentioned video games. We actually talk about video games during our group every week, as well as comic book analogies and metaphors. So video games is a great self-care activity. It's a lot of fun. I know in college I used to play a lot, in grad school as well. It's a great way to connect with people back home and people all over the world. It's a lot of fun. It's fantastic. And sometimes it can become a distraction, like any coping skill. There's a difference between maybe playing an hour or so of video games for self-care and then playing 8 hours and ignoring your responsibilities or your goals, for sure. But one of the things we talk about in the group is you can actually, this is when we cover other behavioral strategies, playing video games could actually become a reward for you. I've worked with students and myself, I used to do this in college also, that I would write a section of a paper and play a level of a video game as a reward. So I would do what I need to do for this paper, and then to reinforce my making progress with it, I'd play a level of video game. When I'm done with that level of video game, I go back to the paper, and it gives me motivation to keep going. So it's like you get the best of both worlds, and it makes you want to keep going with your progress.
Right.
So it doesn't have to be a choice between video games or academics. You can integrate all those things into your life in a productive way.
Hey, my name is Seth, and I have to say my roommate John is always playing Call of Duty, and he's got like friends who come over to the room and they play and they're loud, and I can't get my work done. And yet, I like to work late at night, and so the library is not always an option for me. Like, what do you got for me? Like, what do you recommend that I try in order to be able to do the work at a time when I feel like I'm most productive?
Great question. I'm noticing all the questions you're asking are things that we definitely do cover in the group. So I feel like we're right on top of it. So that's great. And students who attend the group have the opportunity to ask any questions they have also. But one of the things we talk about in the group is the need to be creative and try different things. So if you're finding it's really helpful for you to go to the library, then you might want to schedule that earlier in the day before they close. If you find you prefer to be in your room or a different kind of quiet space, then it might involve advocating for yourself or talking to your roommates, possibly bringing a CA in to do a mediation session to talk about, are there ways that we can have video game time and then maybe quiet study time in the room. So there are different things to try. There's also some great study spaces in dorms that you might try going there, maybe go away from your room. So it might just be trial and error, see what works, and recognize that if you need to talk to your roommate, that's what the roommate agreements are all about, and that's why CAs are there to help support that process. So figuring out what works best for you. That's a big thing we focus on in the group. So the group is, the psychoeducation group is co-facilitated by myself and one of our internship trainees, Brian Hawk, who is in the clinical mental health counseling program at Plymouth State, and one of the members of our staff. So we facilitate the group. The group has a webinar structure. So we don't see people's faces in case people want to be kind of more anonymous, but you can share your thoughts and questions in the chat. So you'll see our PowerPoint presentations, you'll see Brian and I, and then you can always type the questions or comments or thoughts that you have. Something that we noticed, actually the reason we started this group is last semester we were finding a theme with many of the students that we're talking to, we're finding that they had less motivation, or it was really hard to start things because there was that grieving process related to, I can't go to class in person anymore, or it's very different now. And that's a big thing we talk about in the COVID-19 considerations portion of our group, that there is a grieving process and there are certainly things that are lost. And at the same time, we're not helpless. There are things we can do to approximate what we used to find helpful. If you used to love spending time with your friends playing video games in your room, maybe you could do that online. Right. with the headsets, which is a great way to connect. So figuring out how can you be creative and approximate what used to be helpful before.
What do you recommend for students who are feeling, I think, legitimately confused and really struggling to sort of juggle all of these deadlines and that maybe we wouldn't have had if we were in a regular face-to-face setting, if it was fall of 2019?
That's such a great question. I think for me, it's about recognizing that it is a challenge and it is more challenging, and not trying to push that away. I've also encouraged many of the students I've worked with and encouraged myself to think about how do you want to learn and grow during this time? We often focus on what COVID-19 has taken away from us, and maybe we might not see the other side of it as, well, what could this specific moment in my life, this time, what could it teach me that maybe I couldn't have learned last year or maybe next year when we're back in person? So for me, I've thought a lot about, it could be really helpful for patients. I'm kind of the tech guy at the counseling center, and we're more reliant on tech. And inevitably, we're going to have more tech challenges because of that, because we're all more reliant on technology. So learning to sit with that and knowing that there are things I can control and there are also things I can't. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. So I encourage students to do the same. Like, how can you learn from this time? What do you want to learn, or how do you want to grow? How do you want to grow as a person and as a student, maybe beyond just what your classes are talking about, but personally, how do you want to grow? And I think it's important to recognize that it's a challenging time for all of us. Students, staff, faculty, everyone in the country, various countries in the world. I often hear people say that we're all in the same boat, and I agree with that to a point. So we're all going through a very similar challenge. Some people describe it as going through a shared trauma. At the same time, it affects us all in different ways. So I think a better metaphor might be, we're all in the same storm at sea, and we're all in different boats because it affects us differently. For some people, it really affects them financially. For other people, it really affects them socially. For other people, it might not affect them socially or economically. So recognizing that it is a challenging time for everyone, and that the way that it affects you is valid. And just because you might feel, well, this person has it much worse because of what they're going through, that doesn't invalidate how it affects you. So those are things I think of. So the Finding Motivation, Getting Work Done group, the psychoeducation group that we've been talking about, that meets on Wednesdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Students, we encourage, if you can be with us at the beginning at 2 p.m., that's fantastic. Although if you have a class and you can only get there at 3, totally cool. You can just drop by when you can. Again, the Zoom link is on our website, on our homepage, as well as the news and events section and the group section. And Scott, I believe you also have the link as well that you could provide. Excellent. And then we also have a meditation group that's starting on Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. That's going to be co-facilitated by Counselor Beth Bean, a full-time licensed clinical mental health counselor at the Counseling Center, and Sarah Smolin, who is another one of our internship trainees, and she is in the Plymouth State University Clinical Mental Health Counseling Program. So they'll be co-facilitating it. The link for that one will also be in the same place on our website, again, on our homepage, on the news and events section and the group section. And it's open to anyone who wants to come. You don't necessarily have to be a client of the Counseling Center. Pop by any time. Each week they do different types of meditations. So it's something I'm looking forward to and something I plan to attend also. I really want all the students in the Ascent program to know that everyone at the Counseling Center, really kind people. If you're interested in counseling services, the Counseling Center, please call us at 603-535-2461. That's the best way to make an appointment, by giving us a call. But everyone there really cares about working with students and Every decision we make at the counseling center is focused around what's going to be in the best interests of the students. We have two amazing program support assistants up front, Jesse and Joan. Hopefully next semester, if we're all back in person, you can meet them in person, and they can provide tea or water. We also have a candy bowl that we'll bring back out next semester. But all our counselors are really compassionate people, very welcoming, understanding. So keep us in mind, and just wish you all the very best as you you're starting this new adventure in your lives. And I appreciate you, Scott, for having me today. And it's so nice to be talking with you and to see you. And thank you for all the great work you do for the Ascent students.
Thank you very much.